Hi everyone, my name is Emmy and this is my first knitting podcast. I just started knitting seriously for the past month or so I'm very much a beginner knitter, and I enjoyed just watching a lot of YouTube channels while I was knitting and learning. And I really enjoyed like the knitting podcasts and vlogs just to feel like I had a buddy when I was knitting and I was inspired to do that myself. So um, I imagine this to be a just standard knitting podcast, like starting with finished objects, then going to works in progress and acquisitions. And yeah, I think in general, I used to know how to knit in high school. I read this series called Chicks with Sticks, if anybody has read it. But and it was like about these girls that would sit in a circle and knit and kind of gossip and like talk about boys, and it was really fun. And they had knitting patterns in the back, but for some reason in high school I couldn't purl. I just like decided I couldn't, and so then I gave up. And it wasn't until I took a um, like learn to knit class again about 2 months ago at my local yarn store that I was like, okay, purling is not that hard. And that really opened up a world of possibility. So I am wearing one of my finished objects, actually. It is the Cloud Sweater by Petite, very popular. And I kind of was doing two garments at the same time. I'll show you my next one, which was blouse number one. But both of these patterns were super popular and seemed accessible to beginners. I was initially thinking like for my first sweater, the Step by Step sweater by Florence Miller would be really good, but I just didn't like the fit quite as much. And I saw, um, I think in like Melanie Locke's YouTube, she knit her cloud sweater as her first sweater, and she seemed to have an okay time. So I was like, okay, I can do it. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. It is in Drops Nepal and Drops Alpaca Silk. I had heard Drops was a pretty affordable brand, and just because I'm new to this, I don't want to like spend a lot of money on really expensive yarns to begin with. So I think in total, those two held together cost me like $50, maybe a little bit less, like 45. In retrospect, I meant to buy the Drops Kid Silk mohair because I was gonna hold the Drops Nepal is I think like an Aran weight, and I was gonna hold it with a mohair, which was pretty lightweight to make it kind of have that fuzzy halo. But I accidentally ordered the brushed alpaca silk because I don't think I knew there was a difference, and that is another Aran weight yarn. So this ended up being super bulky. I think in most standard women's clothing, I am a like small typically, and I knitted. My gauge was really. I did knit a gauge swatch for this one, and my gauge was really big, so I decided to go with the first size, or like the extra small size. And I think it went well. I followed the pattern exactly as it was written. I like if I were to do this again, I would probably do more of a roll neck because I like the look. I mean, I think it could be easy to pick it up and knit, but I'm kind of lazy. But the only thing that I didn't follow was for some reason, it was my first time picking up for shoulders. So I couldn't get the stitch count. I think it was like 60 something for my size for each armhole. So the first time I tried, I picked up like 50 something stitches and then did like make one left, make one right to get the correct stitch count. But then it looked really weird. Like it was tight here, and then like this is already big, but it was like really big. So I was kind of exasperated. So I just was like, okay, I'll try it better on the next sleeve. So on the next sleeve, I just picked up the amount of stitches that I could. So I think it was 54 stitches, and knit straight down without any decreases, which gives me this kind of like swoopy sleeve. If I did it again, I'd probably do the decreases. I don't know why I didn't. I just thought like it would be too small, but my forearm is definitely smaller than my bicep. I don't know. But it ended up looking a lot better. Like this seam was a lot more natural looking. So I was like, okay, I can probably pick up 54. So I had to undo this whole sleeve, and that was really sad. But ultimately, I really like how it turned out. Because of the two Aran weights, I think it ended up being like a bulky weight. So this is really warm, really thick. I kind of imagine that this could be a good like ski sweater, like to go over a bib, or I'm in the South, the American Southeast, and it's not that cold. So on our like one cold day, which was, I don't know, like 32, I don't know, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, I wore this outside by itself and I was super warm. I like didn't need an additional jacket. So I'm not mad about it. And I think it turned out really well. In total, I have my notes here. I think I used 12 balls of the Drops Nepal and then 6 balls of the Aran Silk. And I think it's really, I mean, I've never had a like wool alpaca silk blend sweater, so it feels really luxurious to me. And I feel like, in the store, it would probably go for more than like $45. So I'm really happy with it. Okay, so I was kind of also knitting, I was kind of knitting 2 garments at the same time because there was a situation of yarn chicken. But my next finished garment is the blouse number 1. Hold it up. It is a very popular pattern by My Favorite Things Knitwear. And I was kind of doing like, I did this part of the blouse as my first garment ever. And then I ran out of yarn because I don't know. I was recommended this. So this is in Juniper Farms Cumulus in the color Hearth. And it is a little bit above my price range. I think it goes for like $20 to $25 a skein. And I originally bought it for a baby blanket for my friend. And I even knitted it up into like one skein into a blanket pattern. And then I just realized for the size blanket I would need like 8 or 10 skeins, and that would be like a couple $100, which I was not willing to do. But then I had this yarn, so I was trying to look at patterns that for garments that didn't use too much yarn. And in total, I used I used I undid the blanket, and then I started knitting this one, and I knit the one skein, and then I was waiting for my other 2 skeins, and they got lost in the mail. Classic. So I had to like reorder it, and then wait for it. So what's cool about this is that I think, so this was my first time knitting in the round. There's a couple mistakes back here that I wouldn't do again. Like when I was joining in the round, I didn't line up all of my stitches, so the back is a little twisted, but I noticed it like, I don't know, 4 or 5 rows in, so I just twisted it. It just looks a little wonky back here, but no one will notice because my hair will cover it. But what I think it's cool is that this is like a really elegant, I think, simple piece. There's not too it has like kind of an unfinished look. There's not too much like ribbing or anything, which makes it pretty easy for beginners. And I can definitely see how my stitches improved like in uniformity. And then in the top, I think because I had frogged the skein, there were some parts where like maybe I didn't enter the knit as precisely, and it like split the yarn a little bit. So there's some fuzzies up top, but that goes away with the later skeins in the bottom. So I think even though it's not like the most perfect, I really think it's cool to see how I've improved. And I really like this beautiful sleeve too. It's not quite a bell sleeve, but I think it kind of gives this like droopy kind of similar vibes. But I have styled this so far with jeans, or I think with a black skirt and black boots. It can be really cute, like for Valentine's Day or something, because it's pink. But I think that this will be, I forgot to mention the Juniper Farms is 100% cotton. So this is a cotton sweater. I think it'll be really good for spring, like kind of in the transitional period, like over like kind of a spring dress. But overall, yeah, I think I used 3.5 skeins. So I think that ended up being like almost 800 meters of yarn. And in total, because it was like more expensive yarn than I anticipated, this did end up costing like, let's say like $60, $60 or $70. So it was a little pricey. And in retrospect, I wouldn't have used such a nice yarn for my first garment, but we are learning. I honestly didn't know what was like realistic for yarn, and when I was deciding to get into garment knitting, I like got really excited on Purl Soho and ordered like yarn that was going to cost like $150 to make a garment, and I was like, that's just how expensive knitting is, until I did more research and realized, like, for me, what I'm comfortable with, because the other part of this is I'm trying to be like more sustainable with my clothing. So for the last year to 2 years, I have only been buying used clothing, just as there's just so much clothing that is already there. So I am trying to be more sustainable and conscientious. And so as I'm trying to incorporate knitting, like kind of into my, because trying to incorporate knitting into kind of my like my lifestyle, my intentions with my wardrobe, I am it can like easily get out of hand, or like you can spend just as much knitting a garment that it would like cost that much in store, and it would be like buying a new, in my mind it would be like buying a new garment. um I know that's not like completely logical, but this is how I'm thinking. And what I'm comfortable with, what I've decided is paying like what I would in the it's not quite like internally consistent, but what I'm thinking is like how much would I pay for like what would be a reasonable price for a new like wool sweater in the store. I think it would be like between 50 and $100. And so if I can spend under that amount for yarn, then I feel comfortable with it. And like I'm not at the point where I'm knitting with cashmere or anything luxurious like that, but I think that if I were to get to that point, I would feel comfortable spending more on yarn, just because like in store those things cost a lot more. Yeah, that isn't really, I don't know. I have to think about like as I continue in this hobby what I'm gonna try to do, like how to be more conscientious about like what I'm making, and like making with intentionality. But those are my two finished objects that I have with me. The other finished object that I don't have with me was a gift knit, and it is the Musselburg hat. Um, I It is by Yasolda Teague, and I knit it in the Isayer Eco Soft in the undyed. I'll put a picture of it on the screen. And I think I was trying, so I stayed with my friend for a few nights, and she was so kind as to like let me stay there for free. So I just wanted to give her something nice. We were out shopping one day, and she was looking at this really beautiful alpaca beanie, and it ended up being like out of her price range. So I wanted to knit her something similar. The Isayer Eco Soft is part alpaca, part cotton, so it wasn't quite like 100% alpaca, but it's really soft. I think that like if you look closely, it kind of looks like a tube, and so it has this like very airy look to it. And I actually have this, is you can see just like how soft it is. And I didn't know that the Musselburg hat is, it's kind of shaped like this. Like you start at the pinpoint, and then you increase, and then you do a tube, and then you decrease, and then you fold it inside out. And I was trying to knit this before Christmas, and I realized if I were to follow the pattern completely as it was written, it would take me a long time, and I probably wouldn't get it there. So get it to her in time. So I just bound off early. So I like did the beginning. So I started like with the pinpoint and the increased, and then knit down until it was long enough to fold over. Um, and then I just bound off using a stretchy bind off that I like found on a YouTube video. And I don't think that that would have worked for every type of yarn, because I don't, because of that. So there's like it's knitted in the round. So there's knit stitch in the front. And then when you flip it over to fold, there's purl on the other side. And I don't know that that would look good with every type of yarn, but luckily the Isayer is so fuzzy. It has a halo that it kind of um, hides like how obvious the purl is. So, in an ideal world, I would have knitted her that according to pattern, but I was trying to get this gift in for Christmas. And also the other part about binding off early is that I only used one skein. I had bought three, like preparing to do the full pattern, but now I'm like, oh, maybe I have like more yarn to make other hats for people. Hopefully, I have two skeins. I think that's what it'll take to do the Musselburgh as it's written. But overall, I found that the cast on was a little bit, I keep saying pinpoint. I don't know if that's because that was what the cast on was called, but it was a new cast on I had never seen before. But like on YouTube, I was able to follow along. And then the rest of it is just like increasing, so like make one right, make one left, and until you get to your desired width. And there's a lot of videos about this hat already, but part of the brilliance is that you don't need to knit a gauge swatch. You essentially use what you've knitted as your gauge swatch. So I thought that was really cool. I started this on the plane. The reason I chose this is because I started this on the plane and I didn't want to, I obviously couldn't do a gauge swatch and like wash and block on the plane. So I was able to do like a considerable amount of work while I was, when I was just traveling. So that was really great. Okay. That was a lot of things for 1 month of knitting. I will say that I have a touch of tendonitis, so I don't know if I'm going to maintain that speed, but it's been fun because with a lot of these projects, when I'm at meetings at work, I just knit and it's pretty like unobtrusive, so nobody has said anything. So I've been able to knit like I would say for like multiple hours of the day. But now we are going to transition to the works in progress that I have. I have a slight cough. Okay, so this is my first color work. There are a lot of techniques that I'm really excited about learning, one of them being color work. And originally I was going to start with something small like a hat or gloves, but then I saw this pattern and I was like, I just have to try. Like, what's the worst that could happen? It looks ugly, but excuse me. This is the King Salmon. It's the beginning of it. As you can see, there are little fish. Okay, hold on. I think I have to take a quick break to cough and then we'll resume. I'm back. I don't know, I just swallowed some spit wrong or something. But resuming, this is the King Salmon. And there's all these adorable fish. I hope you can see them well. I tried to, it's in a like dark hunter green and this kind of tan color. I didn't want it to be too high contrast because this is for my husband. And I wanted him to be able to wear it to work. So I felt like if it was like a really bright white or like, I don't know, I've seen like red or something or yellow or something, that it would be a little too flamboyant for the office. So I chose this nice beige color. And this yarn, so King Salmon is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter. And this yarn is actually from Colourmart, which I had not heard of before until I scoured Reddit for like most affordable yarn. And it's this company that uses ends from industrial knitting. So, like when you buy a garment, they have the knitting machines and they are on these like big cones. And sometimes they have leftover that is enough to knit a garment, but maybe is not enough like for the machine to use. So it doesn't have like brand names or anything, but it has you can filter by material or like fiber, you can filter by weight, and then there's different colors. This one, I got this lovely, I don't know what I would call this, maybe a hunter green, but it kind of is a little marled or a little speckled. And this is the name of it was Heavy DK Extra Fine Merino in the color Azar. And it's really soft. It's really beautiful. I was really excited when I saw this. And in an ideal world, I would have had color work with the same yarn, but the thing about Colourmart is because it's just ends, you can't guarantee that there'll be like, there wasn't another white or beige color in that exact same yarn. I worried a little bit about the tension in my color work because of that. And I do think you can definitely tell that the other yarn that I used is much more like tightly spun, but we're just working with what we have. So the other one, the beige one, it's called Heavy DK Wool Cordonetto Extra in the color Dapple. And I was reading that Cordonetto is just like a way that they twist like tightly wound or like twisted cotton and silk. And you can definitely tell, like, you probably can't tell on camera, but when you feel, like when you look side by side and you feel them, the brown one or this beige one is definitely like very tight. And so I do think it's caused a little bit of problems where you see how it's like puffy up here. And then when the white comes in, it like sinks in, I think, because the yarn is so tightly spun. And then the green is kind of puffy around it. Hopefully that'll block out, or also, if it ends up looking like that, it's not a big deal. My husband is very kind, and he was like, "Oh, I like how it looks. It really gives the white a pop." I'm like, I don't know. That was nice of him to say, but yeah, this is hopefully his Christmas present. We are coming up very quickly on that deadline, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. I'm about halfway done with, or more than halfway done with the fish, like 2/3. So I think that once the color work is done, the rest is just like stockinette, which I knit pretty fast. So the thing that was tough about this, being my first color work, is just how to hold my yarn. I am curious how you guys do it. I would appreciate like any comments or tips. But from what I've seen, people either hold like, so I'm a continental style knitter. People hold both colors in, in their normal hand, like in their left hand, and then they just move the needle to use what color that is appropriate. Or I've seen two-handed color work, which is what I elected to go for. So I am holding the green and doing like continental style knitting, and then I'm holding the beige with my right hand with English style knitting. So maybe I had a hard time. I was trying to video this to show you guys what I meant, but I kind of had a hard time with my camera. But basically, I have like two strands I'm going like back and forth. And it was really hard in the beginning, like to have that coordination. But what I really like about knitting, or what I found fun, is over time, because you do the pattern, or you do so many stitches, it becomes easier. And so now I feel like I'm fairly comfortable using both hands. But it's kind of funny because I'm right-handed, so I thought that my right hand would be able to pick up English style knitting fine, and it wasn't. So, but yeah, I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I think it's going to be really cute. The one thing about this pattern is that people say, so it's a circular yoke and the fish go all the way down, and you don't split for the sleeves until the motif is over. So what some people have complained about is it kind of like the armpit would be like here, so I think they call it like a swancho, like a sweater poncho. Didn't want that for him. So I followed, there's some people on Ravelry, I can try to link it in the show notes, but who give advice on how to split for the sleeves before you finish the color work. So I'm going to do that, hopefully, so it's not like the split is like two in his armpit. So that's one work in progress. Okay, the next work in progress, I have to look all around what I'm doing, is a pair of socks. One of my goals for this year, or as a new knitter, is to knit one of everything, just to see what I like. I've noticed, like, as I watch different YouTubers, people tend towards one thing. Like, some people knit like garments and socks, like some people knit garments and mittens, some people do, so I kind of feel like most people have, like, they like garments and then they do some sort of accessory. So I'm curious to try all the accessories. So far, I have only knitted a scarf. That was my very first knitting project in the Learn to Knit class, and it was the beginner sampler stitch scarf, which was really good to learn. Like, I had never alternated knitting and purling so much. Like, every section is a different pattern. So like 2x2 rib or 1x1 rib, and so it's good practice. I would recommend that just to practice stitches. But it didn't end up so cute, so I don't wear that one anymore. But I've never knitted socks before, so I started a pair. This is, I mean, I'm only at the rib. I'm only at the ribbing for the top of the sock. This is Florence Miller's Petal drop sock pattern. It is, I think it's a lace pattern. And this yarn is so beautiful. It is like light and dark pink. It is the Malabrigo sock yarn in the color, let's see, the color Valentina. I think it's color 689. And these are on US 1 needle. So this is the smallest project that I've ever done. And it is, I don't feel like I have bad eyesight, but I think like when I'm working on this, I concentrate so hard that sometimes I feel my eyes crossed and it gives me eye pain. And so I just need to like take breaks and like look outside the window or something while I'm doing this. But that's kind of why this has been slow going, is because the rib is, I've never done twisted rib. which is what the cuff is. And then also it's so tiny. So it's slowly going. But I really like this yarn. It is like some combination. I think most sock yarns I've heard recommended to be like some combination of wool and nylon. I don't remember the exact specifications, but it's like maybe like 80% wool, 20% nylon. But it has a nice stretch and it's really soft. So this yarn was also a little bit pricey, but I figured like this ball would be enough for 2 socks. So I was like, okay, would I pay $20 for a pair of hand knit socks? I mean, maybe not in the store, but I'm paying for fun. So that is whip number 2. And then the last one that I'm working on is the Wavelength Wrap by Purl Soho, which is a free pattern actually. Oh, I forgot to say, the Petal drop socks are a pay what you want pattern, so it can be free. I really recommend. And Florence Miller on her YouTube has a like step-by-step tutorial that I've watched some of, and it's really helpful, especially for like new things like twisted rib or I don't know. I imagine it's gonna get tough like in the lace pattern. So okay, so the last thing is the Wavelength Wrap. And this is kind of an interesting construction because normally when I think about scarves and wraps, you start on one end and then it's like you do the long part and then you end, versus this is made long ways. So what that means is I cast on like 380 stitches or something. And it looks wonky right now because this is going to be the entire length of the scarf. But what I found really beautiful about the pattern is that it has these scallops. So it's essentially like, a scarf is just a rectangle, but then on both sides, there's like these beautiful scallops. And there's a lot of lovely details in here that I didn't even see on the pattern. Like I just noticed the big scallops, but like I learned to do this lateral braid. I think it's really beautiful. And here is a little scallop. You do it by doing German short rows. So just like wrap in. Actually, I don't think they're German short rows. They're a different type of short row, but it's the same idea. Like you just turn the work and then you wrap around. It was fairly easy to learn, especially if like you've done short rows for a garment or something before. So you just do short rows basically back and forth to get the little scallop. And then I think there's maybe 11 scallops. Uh-oh, my stitches are falling off. I think there's maybe 11 scallops and I'm on like scallop, I don't know, 3 or something. I think I've been kind of unmotivated um, because it's so long. Like there's no satisfaction of like finishing a row. It's just like, 380 stitches in one direction. You go back and forth and back and forth. But the yarn is this. I really like the color. I just had a vision of like a Christmas scarf, like a bright red Christmas scarf with, like a dark coat and also have dark hair. So I thought that would look good together. It is the Patons Classic Wool Worsted, which is 100% wool. And it is in the color bright red. This is just from Michael's, or at least my local Michael's had it. I love the color. I will say after now working with a couple different yarns, it's not as soft as I would like, but I think for the price point, it's really good. I mean, Michael's always has a sale, so I think I got like this for like $4 or $4.50 or something when I bought it around like mid-December. Maybe it was like Black Friday. So I think it'll turn out really beautiful. They have a choice between making a scarf or a wrap, and the yardage that you need is basically double. Like so it's gonna be double in width, like from a scarf to a wrap. The wrap is really chunky looking, so I'm kind of doing something in between where I'm planning on using like the in-between yardages. I think they said it was like 600 yards for the scarf or 1200 for the wrap. So I plan to do 800. So it's a little bit like a wide scarf. And I think that'll look really pretty. But I don't know like how much progress I'm actually going to make on this one because I've been really excited about about the fish sweater. Okay. Now the last part is just acquisitions. And I was really lucky to go to Asheville to Friends and Fiberworks, which is there's 2 big yarn stores there, I think. And this one is a little bit out of town. I'm not from there. I was just visiting for the holidays. And it's like this really big warehouse, and it was probably the biggest yarn store that I've ever seen. But one motivation to go was that they had they posted on their Instagram that they were having a big sale, and so I picked up some things that I normally like wouldn't. And one of those things is this color. It is Rowan Island Blend Fine, which is a combination of wool, baby alpaca, and silk. And I think that this would be really nice for some sort of cabled sweater. That's one of my next goals. So I would appreciate any suggestions you guys have on easy cable work. I was thinking the one of the other Lutz sweaters that maybe have like the same cable pattern over and over. I think like Tulip loop I heard is approachable because the cable pattern is the same, and I think they have a few designs that are just one cable pattern. So I'm gonna do that and just to see if I like cabling. But yeah, I think this color will be really nice. It's sort of like a cool purple. Yeah, I got a sweater quantity, and it's a really nice yarn. I got it for 50% off, so I'm excited about that. And the other acquisition that I have is also from Colourmart. It is called DK Wool Toscana. There wasn't that much detail about it, but I love it. It's like a really dark chocolatey brown. And I ordered the Isayer mohair that everybody speaks so highly of, which is pretty luxurious. But this is I don't know why this is so beautiful to me, but I really feel like this is one of the most beautiful yarns I've ever seen. And so I was like, I want to make a really sort of classic, like timeless dark brown, like dark chocolatey brown sweater. And I was looking at some patterns, but this is another place I would appreciate recommendations. I was looking at the Karl Johan sweater, and because it just seems like a classic sort of turtleneck that would, I could wear it to work. It would look good with anything. But I don't love just the turtleneck part of it because my thinking was like if I want to maximize wears out of the sweater, I don't know that a turtleneck is something that I would reach for all the time. Like it kind of has to be below a certain temperature before I reach for that. So if you guys have recs on sweaters that are maybe, maybe just like maybe more of a relaxed neck, that are kind of like a classic timeless style, I would appreciate it. I was also looking at some of the Ozetta patterns. She just has a lot of beautiful patterns that are like simple, kind of elegant sweaters. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about, which is not a acquisition, is just with Colourmart. Um, it's really nice whenever you order from. I swear this is not an ad. I'm just really amazed at how affordable like all their yarn is. Like this beautiful wool sweater quantity was like $40, and I think it's so beautiful. But when you order from them for the first time, they send you this sampler, and it's like all these different, because it's a little bit, their website is a little 2000s, like it's kind of hard to read. So it kind of they give you a sample of all the different weights of yarn. So when you're ordering next time, it goes all the way up to like chunky. They you can have this as a reference to know like what exactly like what dimension this weight yarn is, and to get to know like how they categorize. I mean, they don't categorize their yarns any different than other people, like in terms of like lace weight, fingering, cobble, all that. But I do think that just that was a really nice touch. So I would really recommend. They seem like a good company, and I don't know what I was gonna say, but so I hope you enjoyed this first knitting podcast. I have not talked into the camera ever really, but especially not for this long of a time. So I hope it wasn't too rambly. I imagine this to be just any standard knitting podcast. So mostly like hopefully updating once a month on what I've been working on, showing you different like projects, and then also maybe doing a planning video for like what I hope to learn. I guess I'm coming at this from I love school, to be honest. Like if I could be in college for the rest of my life, I think that'd be really fun. And I was the type of person in college who took like I was in STEM, but I took like an anthropology course. I took a comp sci course. I don't even know, like I tried to learn Italian at a certain point. I'm just into learning random things. And so the way that I guess I've conceptualized knitting is thinking about these big buckets of techniques that I would like to learn. So, color work being one of them. I'm just starting on that. Cabling being another. I sort of have like in my mind projects that progress in difficulty from like beginner to more hard. So I'm hoping to kind of talk through that in my planning video for 2026. I'm going to try to do one for my upcoming like winter and spring knits. And yeah, if you've made it this far, thank you so much. Um, I hope that this is helpful for beginners and, you know, is helpful to know what is a difficult pattern or not. I kind of think in the beginning when I was um, looking at patterns, I didn't necessarily love all the patterns that were marketed like as for beginners. And so I hope this is encouraging to you that, even if a pattern is not marketed for beginners, like with YouTube or with like my local yarn store has a knit coach, like with help, you can definitely do it. Okay, so I hope to see you again.